Okay, we're there. Oh, you know what? I should tell you, I like Philip more than Phil.
Well, I was going to call you Crazy Phil, so I don't know if that's works for you or not, but I like it.
Okay, well,
Crazy Phil, but
but just
Philip, or you could be Crazy Philip if you want. But
Crazy
there's
Philip is, yeah, that I'm liking
Crazy
that.
Phil. Okay, well,
Crazy Philip. Yep, yep.
Crazy Philip is settled there.
Hi, I'm Chris Minnick. I'm here with Philip Barish, and today we're going to be talking with Morrison Pierce on the Secret Podcast, coming to you not live from the Secret Gallery.
Oh yeah,
But we are live. It's just not from the Secret Gallery.
We're live at this moment. It's true.
we're all in three different locations.
Yeah, just so we're
at the same time.
Yeah, so Morrison is a painter here in Astoria, Oregon, and he has several works in our show right now titled "And the Horse You Rode In On," which just opened on Saturday. We had a very, very low key COVID opening yesterday and Saturday, and had probably about 10 people total through here, and sat and hung out on the patio of the Secret Gallery.
Well, and I'll point out
and a
that
good time was had by all.
Me and my lovely wife were two of those 10 people in the course of the opening, and that would be on Saturday night. And so we actually had the opportunity to spend more time looking at work than actually working the crowd, which is kind of what happens at openings. Yeah.
There's no crowd to be worked right now.
Yeah, so for me, it was actually instructive. It was instructive and educational to not have diversions.
Oh, yeah. If you're allowed in a building and you can look at art, it's pretty awesome because you can spend the time with the art.
So I was going to point something out here. So about 3 weeks ago, Chris asked me about who we want to talk to. And, of course, Morrison, you came up. You were on the short list right from the get-go. And so on a Friday morning, I go downtown at 7:30 to go to the ATM to get some money that I don't have. It's 7:30 on a Friday morning. There's no one around, and you're standing on the street corner across the street from the ATM that I am trying to get money out of. And I realized that
that's where I work. I'm hooking on that corner.
Well, okay. There's a lot of stuff in there, but I'm going to say that in a way that kind of set the tone, because I realize that kind of solitary image is as much about film as it is about, we're going to talk about your paintings. And that I think that we're going to talk as much about film as your paintings, because I now understand you were at one point a film major. Am I correct on that?
Oh, yeah. I did. My movies go all the way back to probably like 10 or 11 years old, back to the old VHS cameras you put on your shoulder. So I always like films. I always like making movies, but it's just a whole different experience, filmmaking itself. It's way different. Like I probably my best times in films where it was like where I felt the most free, Super 8 in Los Angeles in the mid to late 90s. I probably made like 50 different little 3.5-minute Super 8 black and white films, and they were just so fun, just raw and experimental. They're all gone now; they burn up. But some of them are on YouTube, the little black and white ones. A few of them from that era, not all, but just a few.
So have you abandoned? Have you abandoned filmmaking for painting, or are you still doing it?
Well, filmmaking right now, I think in film. I actually think in film a lot, and I try to transfer it over into my painting, more like characters or mood or emotional. If you ever really looked into my work, if I do a big enough series or a body of work, it's I try to get raw and gritty and emotional with it, kind of like a character would in a movie. But it's multiple paintings. It's not something I actually really ever talk about with anyone.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about that right now, and I'm going to tell you why. You first became I became aware of you. You had a show at the Secret Gallery about a year and a half ago. That was a bunch of women doing mundane things, working in kitchens, vacuuming.
Oh yeah,
all kinds of things. Right, and so there was a lot of pieces in that show. And the word I would use now, which I used then, and it's still true in terms of how I view your work, is I found it to be very deceptive. So I want to start with the technical side of things, because at first glance, that work appears to be crudely crafted, and it actually reminded me of kind of documentarian style of filmmaking. And so
Uh,
as I studied the piece, as I became aware that the actual level of what seems to be lack of craft is actually an intentional, I don't want to say lack of craft. It's an intentional technique that you use in order to convey what was happening in that body of work. So here's all of these women, they're doing very mundane things. They're working around the kitchen, they're doing all kinds of stuff, and then once in a while you'll just throw something in there that is really kind of like more or less horrific and changes the real kind of context or content of what it was I was looking at. So when I stand back and think about that body of work, I'm thinking that those would be single cells from a film where each cell would represent a single like thing, an image that or a
oh,
statement that's being made. And if you ran them all together, you get some weird kind of jumbled, just restless, disjointed thing. Is
oh
that
well,
what?
well that for a show. Well, that one, that those were all isolated people. Seeing this now, it's so crazy. Like that was April of 2019 when that show was. That was a
There you
year
go.
ago.
Okay, so yeah, a little over a year ago.
Someone had fallen out on this that was at Jill's McBarish gallery, and someone had like I don't know dropped out, and I got moved up. We got that second show, different theme, and I went. It was because I had did the Pink World War II theme show in September of 2018, which was a whole different body of work where everything was pink. And then I was like, oh, I wanted to come up with a new idea. And whenever you're trying to fill a gallery, you have to have a strong enough idea. So my idea was the lonely housewife, or an isolated person, or just somebody that's dealing with things that nobody would know about. You know, it's like, because most people don't ever talk about their troubles. They just try to paint the rosy picture, right? So I would prefer, if you look at any of my work, I like to look at stuff that people don't want to look at. I like to make that my subject matter, because then it's all the things you can do, all this, the painterly tricks and all the this and that, magic to get the piece. But it's all about the subject matter. You know, your subject matter to me is really the most important thing, even more so than how good of a painter you are, especially nowadays, because it's a language. You know, painting has come all the way back around, because I feel like people have now gotten bored of their phones, gotten bored of the internet, because all that shit is kind of stupid. You need something tangible, you need something real, and a painting you can make with your hands. You can after you take it into your house, you can feel it. Like the best compliments I ever get is what people have had my paintings in their house for 6 months or to a year or a few years. And it's all the other things that they see in the piece that they didn't see when they first bought it or first wanted it, or they first came into their possession. It's not until later. And then they'll come back to me and tell me all about this or that in a piece. And because I paint 300 or 400 paintings a year, it's sometimes even hard for me to remember what piece they're talking about, until I depending on what it is, who it is, and where it is, I can almost pull back that emotion. Because if any of my pieces work, and I know when they work, and I even know when they don't, like I try to leave something in there that will last beyond just the image. And that to me is the emotional side of my art, the emotional side, because some people just paint pictures and they don't necessarily put themselves into their art. It's just a technical craft. It's just technical abilities. And then some people paint out every fucking thing that is bothering them that day, or everything that's gone wrong in their life, or everything that's gone right, or it doesn't even matter. And they connect with that piece. And then that's almost that cathartic release. I'm one of those kind of artists. I'm one of the cathartic release artists. That's why for 27 years now, I continue to learn the craft. I continue to learn. I try to learn every day, or I fuck it up all that day, and I hate what I did. You never know. I mean, it's when you paint 7 days a week, 365, you don't really, you have good days and bad. You never know.
Yeah, but one of the
I
things
mean,
is that in terms of looking at your work is that you have you approach your work, there's a range of craft. And so going back to the Housewife series, and then we'll come to the stuff at, Secret Gallery and other things in between, is that particular series, it the reason that I had trouble with it initially is it appeared to be that you didn't take the time to develop a craft. But when I started looking at it more closely, I realized that your intent was to give it a primitive look, which then affected how I viewed the pieces. And so what I've
oh
seen in
well,
looking at your pieces is that you have a wide
well,
range of how you technically approach stuff.
well. Actually, if you even go, I will even tell you even further about that show. This is what's so beautiful about that show, and not most people don't even know it. And I'll even tell you. Probably there was 30 pieces in that show. I would say over 20 of them were paper mounted on wood covered in wax to look like canvas. So, and all those pieces are gone. They're on somebody's walls, but they were pieces of paper that I was able to, like, literally, I was trying something. I had found cold wax medium at the tail end of the Pink World War II show, and I experimented with it, but I wasn't ready to like dive full in. I dived full in for the Housewife show, and it was like acrylic and cold wax. It's more like an oil and cold wax, or more. They get along better. Acrylic and cold wax was very different. It was like bulky, chalky, just thick globs. Because I would paint the piece and then just throw it on raw, knife it all up. Whatever the hell happened to the piece. It would have to dry for a lot more days than anything else. Then I would sometimes go back over it. So all those pieces from that show was the rawest experiment I had ever done. Two pieces right before an opening. I was like, because I did all that kind of tail end to something, but I was like, oh, you know what? I'll make them all look like this, and then they're going to have a certain feel to them. And it was something that I'd never done, and I've actually since then abandoned that whole thing. I've abandoned cold. I actually gave Jill the cold wax last week that I had left, and it was like half a can. I was like, I don't do this anymore. I've moved on to other mediums and other glosses, so it doesn't even have that. Everything I do now looks totally different than what stuff from like the end of last year.
Okay, well, so then here's another thing too, and this is going to be a very broad statement, but I believe a lot of your material is rooted in pop culture of the 50s, and I'm going to defend my position here. So talking about the Housewives series, they also reminded me very much of covers from periodicals and magazines from the 50s, things like Look and Vogue and Saturday Evening Post and McCall's. That if they had been, if those publications had been more on the edge of art, that you would have been doing covers for them. And I felt very strongly that those were rooted in the 50s. I also feel very strongly in terms of the stuff that you're now doing. It's rooted very much in filmmaking of the 50s. And so
yeah. Well, my favorite art of all time, like for me personally, pulp art. Pulp art and film noir. If you were to combine any two of my favorite loves, it would be those two. On a like just of how pulp art to me, it was a great palette. It's very strong. It's very real. It's very in your face. It has emotional ties to whatever that little scene is. And then film noir, it's just all angles and shadows and just, even raw emotion too.
Yeah, well, right. And so I'm really glad that um, you're actually agreeing with me here, because I want to take it to the next step. So one of the things I was thinking about, so you were talking film noir and talking about your pieces, and so I see them embedded very clearly in the visual language of the 50s. So I'm thinking of directors like William Castle and Hitchcock and Fellini and Stanley Kubrick. I see that a lot of that stuff feeds what you do, and that you kind of like, and I mean this in a good way, you kind of regurgitate it in a punk way that reflects the 50s in terms of pop culture, but you're giving it a contemporary kind of turn. So the pieces that you now have in the secret gallery, which, I just saw them on Saturday night. There's some really odd things that were happening in there. Technically, I got the impression, and, you can tell me if I'm off the mark here, but I got the impression that you had ideas, and that some of the ideas you were really wrestling with, and some of the other ideas you were able to distill really rapidly, because it's a range.
Yeah.
You've got 5 pieces in there, and technically
there's six pieces. 3 of them are on the panels and 3 of them are on canvas. And the panel ones were painted probably, I guess, at the beginning of the year, because the show, when the show opened up, very early this year, February or March. I don't even know when the show opened up. It was so long ago, because the year's
that would have been
was it
February?
February. So I painted through those cowboy paintings when I got back from Miami, the first original 3, and I liked the first 3, even though now I don't even really like the Annie Oakley. I have ideas about what I would do with her. I would almost want to turn her into a clown, but that's just me where I'm at.
But technically, she's a better painted piece, I think. I mean, you may not like the image so much, but there's more discipline. Am I not right on that?
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of fun stuff in the piece, but after you let a piece go, which to me, whenever the piece is gone, it's gone. If somebody takes it as theirs, if you have the image, you've done it. If it's in the show, those 3 pieces. The thing is, the last 3 pieces that I did, I actually is where I'm exploring right now. And I like those 3 pieces. I mean, the other 2, there's some good pieces in the first 3. I do like them. They're all, they're fine. But the last 3, I experimented with each one of them, because I call it the kitchen sink. I threw everything at those canvases. I threw pastels, chalk, pencil, pen, paint. I threw mediums on it while I was painting it. And I wanted it to look a certain way. So loose, because I'm trying to come up with a looser style that I can execute, that has it's a rough one. It's a rough path I'm on to try to, I've always wanted to be able to like have a half in, half out, like half real raw, real loose, and then be able to finish into something. You know what I mean? Finish into something recognizable. So you have like elements of abstract that just fall into something else. So I'm always, depending on the piece, I always try to do that now. Try to pull off some boundary between the two. And if I feel like I have gotten close to it, like in those last 3 that I added to the show, I felt like I was getting close to where I'm in my mind of how I want a piece to feel, enough to where it's recognizable. You pull in all this other different stuff. To me, the different stuff is the elements of the material. Like now just working on, a pastel on canvas thrown next to paint, thrown over medium. I was like, those are things that I like to do, because I like to see things work together that aren't supposed to work together, and then see what happens. That's because, after 27 years, you got to try to have fun still, to keep coming back to the table. And what keeps me coming back, honestly, is experimenting. Okay, so
one of the pieces you must be talking about is the horse I rode in on, which to me is the one that's the most gestural of the pieces hanging in the show, and it's the one that, to me, if you're moving in another direction, would be more representational of what now interests you. And so,
but that's it. Yeah, it is in one sense, but that was just to finish up it was weird. I'm one of those painters, like those 3 paintings that I added to the end almost felt more like a homework assignment, because I was in a different place. I was back onto the gas mask. I was like, I had been researching gas masks for like the last 2 months, And I was like, oh, I had probably painted like 10 gas masks. I was on a roll with gas masks. And then Jill's like, hey, Chris is extending the show. Would you like to do some more cowboy pieces? And I was like, could they be gas masks? She's like, no. I was like, oh. I was like, okay. But I was in a different place creatively. Like I was in the gas mask heaven. And then she's like, oh, well, you need to paint a few more pieces for the show because it's going to be up longer. I was like, okay. So it was hard to stop personally of where I was at that point of painting what I was painting and then go into cowboy pieces, because that's totally two different ends for me. Way different vibe. You can't put gas masky stuff, but so it's different energy, you know what I mean? So I was like, all right. And then it took me, I busted those three pieces out, all three, probably within 2 days, all day, all night, different times of the day, work on one, move it around, work on the other, move it around to where I could have it finished, be happy with the pieces. Cause if I'm not happy with them, I'm not going to turn them in. I'd just be like, no, I don't. I don't. But I was. But at the end, I was happy with them because I was like, you know what? I like what I did with them. They're totally different because I was thinking about, even without looking at them, I was thinking about the other three pieces that I did for the show. Right. So I was like, oh, it's going to be totally opposite of what I already have there. So it's like a different balance to work by the same artist.
Okay,
to where
well,
it's
not
like,
just, yeah. Well, not just a different balance. I mean, there's something too in terms of they lack any kind of political comment. I mean, the work prior to that, like you're talking about the gas masks, they're blatantly political. And I would say that once again, using that broad brush, that a lot of your politics, I think, go back into the 50s and move forward in terms of all of these, huge issues that are now facing us. But I see your imagery still rooted in kind of science fiction-y, kind of B grade, kind of grindhouse stuff.
Oh yeah, all that is, yeah, you're right on, honestly, because look, we are in science fiction and most of us are B grade humans anyway, or C grade humans. So it's like you can kind of almost realize if you really look at life in the world and even how it's been since the 50s on. Like I feel like from probably like the 40s, I look at life and art one and the same. If you look at the 40s and abstract expressionism in New York and all the greats, all the massive monumental artists that came out of the 40s, then you look at the 60s with pop art. Well, those are the two art world moments that happened right before I was born, the 40s and the 60s. I'm a 70s baby. So then I grew up in the 70s and then started to look at 80s, right? You're become an 80s kid. I'm an 80s kid. Later in life, become an artist. Look back on life as studying art history, all the movements, all the moments in my own existence. 80s, 60s, 40s. 80s art to me, New York 80s art, the best. You got Schnabel, you got Basquiat, you got Koons, you got Herring, you got all the masters from the 80s. And you look back to the 60s. Of course, my favorite artist of all time has always been Andy Warhol. He's my ultimate all-time favorite, always will be. I carry around a flower from his grave in my art studio that I picked over 8 years ago when I went to see him on his birthday at Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Oh yeah, that's a great story. Smoked a joint on his birthday and left him a birthday card. But anyway, it's kind of. It's like, what do you want in life? You just got to kind of search for it. I mean, me even being here in Astoria, I was supposed to be living in Colorado with my best buddy at the time. But instead of living in Denver, he moved way out. And I visited him 6 times over a 2-year period. And he moved out to Westminster. And I just didn't like the vibe out there. I flipped this coin, a 1937 American Buffalo nickel. I flipped this coin. It landed on Astoria. I drove from Westminster, Colorado to Astoria, a town I'd never been to, and I fell in love with it. and it took everything I got to stay here. At the first time I was only here for a week, went all the way back to Florida, and it was 100 degrees in July of Florida. And I was like, damn, I miss that little town I went to. I really want to go back there. And everything, my son had just graduated high school. He was about to go to college in New Hampshire. I paid 17 years of child support. I was a free guy. I was like, I could be anywhere I want in the world. And I still to this day live my life that way. I could be anywhere I want in the world, no matter what. If you don't feel it, if you're free, that's freedom. It doesn't matter about money. It doesn't matter about any of those things. It's about where you want to be. How do you want to exist? How do you want to live? That to me is all way more important than all those other things that you chase. I try to stay myself a complete minimalist. If you have I create things. I don't want things. For me to want to create something is enough. That's desirable enough for me. Keeping everything else simple is easy enough, because you can have, like, if you're lucky to get one of my pieces, meaning like it's made by me. I've never done a print. I've painted thousands of pieces in my life. It's because I painted them. It's the one. You caught the one moment that I was sitting in front of something and made it, and then you got it, or someone else got it, and I'm happy with that. I like that. I've lived a barter life. I've bartered with people for 27 years on liking what I do to keep me alive. If they didn't, I probably would be dead, because it's just how I live. It's like I'd rather live that true and be true to art and let art take care of me no matter what it is. And sometimes, I tell you what, it's a challenge, because if you want to grow as an artist, you have to do things that nobody likes. You have to do things that nobody wants, and then make them like it and make them want it. And you know why? They'll be better for it, because that is the next push. If you keep turning out cookie cutter images and cookie cutter bullshit, you're never going to grow as a society. You're never going to grow as a people. And all those people that made that art by them will never be remembered, because it's all shit. We've been on this planet for a long time, and there's enough shitty art. So to me, only good art right now is subversive. You've got 10 million flower paintings. You've got 10 million of this. You've got 10 million of that. It's not doing anything for the planet. It should be in people's faces to wake them up. I mean, I sometimes really hate myself because I don't do enough of subversive stuff, and I don't do enough raw, real stuff. And people think I do, and I'm like, I really want to go further. And then when I try, I limp along to it, or sometimes I just knock it out of the park, and I am that subversive, and I am that real. But we're in a small town here, so you can only do what you can do. It's I already stand out like a sore thumb as it is, so I'm not worried about that. Easy. I'm more about just being real as an artist. I just want to always be real as an artist.
Okay, so Morrison, I understand what you're saying in terms of how you view what it is you do, but I can't help but feel that a lot of what you do is rooted in how you reinterpret popular culture. And so there has to be a piece of that in terms of, like, you can, your view of popular culture in terms of what I would call source material, where you subvert that source material. I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, because it's one of the things I found deceiving about your work, is the fact that you are obviously very aware of pop culture. And it's not
of course.
It's not that you don't.
I am pop culture. I am pop culture. I understand it. It's like you're in a moment where you already know what you are. I'm in that moment where I already know what I am. Sometimes people meet living legends, and sometimes people are the living legends.
I am art.
Wasn't that great? I thought so. Chris is slapping his stats off over here. No, but I think I understand what it is to be artists. I mean, I look back at what it is to know the craft. I'm self-taught. I never went to school. I'm more proud of my son, who's going in to be a senior in college. I look at the craft. I have to learn every single piece. I have to learn about everything, every single piece. And what if I'm pulling in pop culture, or I'm pulling in angst, or any of the emotions that I want to put into a piece? It's because I feel like the piece deserves it. Not every piece deserves it. It doesn't. It can't be that way. All that's draining. It drains you. I just painted last Saturday. I painted a food truck really nice piece with another artist here. Painted 8 hours outside. That drained me for like 2 days now because it was all in the sun. But I'm going to paint the other side, and it's going to be more emotional, more draining because it's a person that's died. I got to put more into it because it's going to be a respect thing. And I'm preparing myself for that. And I've already been thinking about it for 2 weeks, but I'm still not even myself mentally prepared to put all what I'm going to have to put in to make this piece work. Because I know it's going to be a good piece because I've been thinking about it for a while, but I have to put all my energy and efforts and be in the right place to make it work, because it's not even for me, it's for everyone else. If you can find yourself sitting in front of a little table every single day, 7 days a week, no matter where that table is, and just keep grinding out and know that what you're making, you got to put the time in. You got to put the time in. It might not be, the best day you're having, but if you don't put the time in, you're not going to have the work. It doesn't even matter what the work is. It could be the shittiest paintings, but I tell you what, if you put the time in, those shitty paintings will find an audience.
So when you're doing work, like if you're doing a body work, let's just take, for instance, you're right, it is 6 pieces at the Secret Gallery. I apologize for saying 5. I forgot that it's the one that is, what is it? Is that your horse? The one with the Lone Ranger and Tonto in it, which is around the corner.
Oh, yeah.
Which that's a very curious piece. I guess let's take a second and talk about that, because
that piece is a failure. I actually hate that piece.
Okay,
I failed on that
before
piece
you tell me
5
why
times.
you hate it, there's a couple things I want to point out in terms of having just looked at it. Is that the first thing that I was responding to is that it's genuinely strange. And one of the things is what's going on in there? What is like Tonto holding a gun, and what's with the flowers? And so there was part of me that was looking at it in terms of narrative structure and saying, what is the narrative structure? And then, of course, the other part of me was just saying it's the Lone Ranger, and like there's so much stuff that's embedded in that imagery.
Oh, so yeah. It's Brokeback Mountain. It's Brokeback Mountain. It's actually a gay painting. I didn't even want to tell anybody about it, but now you know. Damn it. It was a gay painting. Even the horse is in on it. And it's the horse they rode in on. It's like a 3-way gay sex in the desert. And now I'm going to need counseling. And anybody listening to this is going to need counseling too.
Wow. Okay. I'm thinking real hard about that. So you don't like it?
No, I do like it. Do you know what it is? The challenge is, I'll tell you the truth about that. I am going to try to, it's white. It's white itself. The texture and paint white itself, the color. I've been looking at other artists' work, and somehow they're able to incorporate white into their work, right? I've been following these two or three artists. One of them's from South Africa, one of them's from Spain. I think another one's from England. But they're all really incorporating white into their work, right? To paint white. And I'm just like, I always look at their work. It's on Instagram. These 3 different artists I look at, periodically during the week. And it's how they use the white. And I was thinking, everything they're all doing like distorted faces, and it's very angst-ridden work. So it's nothing that I'm putting into my work, but I was looking at how they used white. And I look at I look at my work, and I like, white is in every single one of my paintings, but it's mixed with the color. So this piece in particular, the Lone Ranger piece, I was straight using white. And I had to paint that Lone Ranger piece, like the Lone Ranger himself, probably 8 times. Gray, white, gray, white, gray, white, gray, white, gray, white, back and forth, because I was trying to build up this shape in him himself. The rest of the piece was fairly easy because it was the palette of the piece. I liked the ochre, I liked the browns, I liked the blues. All that was it was just like a moving piece. But the white part of stopping it, because that white Lone Ranger stops the painting. If you look at it, it stops it. Even the white horse behind it, he's flowing with it because he has colors and all that flowing in. But that white angle of him, that's why. I mean, it's kind of like a win and a lose. You know what I mean? It's a win and a lose. Like I like it overall, but yeah, if nobody buys these pieces by the time they're coming down, I'll be paying over 2 of them because those panels they cost enough money to where if you don't buy them, I'll paint over them because I've already invested in the piece X amount of dollars, and I'm not afraid to paint over any of my stuff because I pay for it.
So would
So
you
I
save
like.
the image digitally? If you're going to paint over an image, will you save it digitally? Would it be important for you to have that?
No, I don't ever care about that. It doesn't matter to me. The image is the image. If the way I see it, like I paint for myself, and then whenever some Jill or Chris say, "Hey, it's time to do a show," and I've loved it the last 2 years. We get a theme, so we have a theme. We need this many paintings. Turn it in by this date. It's the greatest feeling in the world. So I know it doesn't even matter what time of year it is. Hey, you need this many paintings for this. Boom. I'll knock those pieces out. I'll turn them in. And then that's great. It doesn't matter if I have a few months notice or a few weeks notice. I'll work on those things first. The materials are the materials. I prefer the panels for the gallery, but 90% of my painting I do on paper. Like 90%. I like paper the most, but paper is one pain in the ass to show in a gallery. But 90% of my work is on paper. I can turn paper into a piece to be, mounted on wood, frames. There's all kinds of different things I could do that way. And I'm starting to experiment outside. I have a bunch of I think in my studio right now, I have 20 pieces hanging on my wall, and they're all wood or panels, that are ready to go. So I'm not worried about that. And I have at least probably 100 pieces on paper, all from this year, all different sizes. None of them have been seen or shown. I mean, you can see them on the internet, but they haven't been shown anywhere yet. So I'm not, and I brought a piece to this podcast because I actually thought you were going to be here. So I started a piece today, and I finished one piece this morning. I've probably got like a stack of 20 pieces that I'm working on right now. But I'm experimenting with leftover paint. So imagine you're sitting there, you've been painting for a few hours, you're burnt out on this piece, and you got 3 or 4 different colors or 2 colors or 1 color. Well, I just start scraping that off with a paint knife, and I got a stack of this smaller watercolor paper. I think it's like 6 by 8. But I've been scraping off these different random colors running through this whole stack of paper. And I've probably already got like 30 pieces in the last few weeks. And I'll then draw on top of them. I'll make characters out of them. But as I'm knifing the work, because I want to start to do more knife work into my larger work. So I'm practicing on all these smaller pieces of work, and then I'm incorporating and building up a new style that I will freely go into the larger work. So I'm doing something off to the side, which is another way to keep myself interested in painting. It's like it's a downtime exercise, totally no rules at all, because I'm just throwing the paint on with a knife. I do make, but what I found is even right before I came here, I had like 2 colors. I had this lime green and like a brownish ochre, mixed, kind of almost gray looking. I made like 3 different faces on top of these other ones that I did yesterday, and they all had this like feel to them. I just laid them on the ground. They'll dry. I'll come back. I'll put them back in. But I already saw things in them that I could develop. And this is like the raw abstract thoughts. Like when people consider what abstract thought is, and like the Rorschach test or whatever, however you say that damn guy's name, that test, like those kind of things. Like I want to explore that for sure. Just as downtime, not as a full thing. It's like after you've already had a full day of like, okay, I'm a painter. I'm doing this. And then you work on, what somebody would buy and put in their home. And then at the end of that, So you get that little bit of time for yourself. That's like, I'm gonna charge this, and almost be a kid again, and then you can experiment. And
Well,
that's
and it
what I've been
seems to
doing.
me, when you're talking about that, is that one of the things about your work is that there, to me, is the collision between energy and ideas, and that some of your pieces have a very intensely nervous energy to them in terms of how you approach them as far as technique. But the ideas are very kind of literal. So the example I'll bring up right now are the series of the global warming series. It was the Future in Extinction Rebellion. You've got the
Hmm.
polar bears and you've got the McDonald's and you've got all that stuff, which, by the way, there's a lot of
Oh
white in
yeah,
that. There's a lot of white in those polar bear painting. I wanted to point that out to you. Okay.
yeah, I know, but that was
Hey, there's a lot of
different
white in there.
though.
Okay.
Even I know there was a lot of white, but you know what? I had to paint those blue and black first, and then those pieces there. That last cheeseburger. See, that last cheeseburger in hell series was that's probably been my favorite series I've done. Probably since the World War II series of 2018, because I really like that pink series a lot. But this series, I'm still working on it. I'll probably paint that forever now because I like the concept of the last cheeseburger in hell. I mean
Well, you call it the
that
Future and Extinction Rebellion. So there's a couple things that we should just talk about. Then is that one of the things about that series that is very distinct is what I am characterizing as nervous energy in terms of how you approach it technically. There's an enormous amount of gestural work. There's an enormous amount of brushstrokes. I mean, you're very actively engaged in the act of painting, and at the same
oh
time, you're
yeah.
building what it would appear to be like a narrative, and this gets back into the filmmaking thing, especially rooted into the 50s, is that you have this kind of story arc about the Extinction Rebellion where the animals are replacing people, and then you have the sharks and the vultures and the whatever it is. And to me, again, in terms of the discussion of pop culture references in filmmaking now, is coming out of the films of the 50s and into the 60s, where they were used as a framework to actually discuss political and social ideas and how much you can get away with when you are pretending that it's science fiction or
Well,
horror. In reality, it's actual statements.
yeah. That's why I replaced people with animals. I actually have gotten further into the series of like what I'm trying to always uncover and discover. I'm like an uncover and discover. You uncover something like most of my art that I do, like the original image, whatever hits me first. Because 90% of my stuff comes from a black and white image. All I do is go to Google, be like, oh, boop, boop, boop. Think of something, you find something on Google and Google Images, go down the rabbit hole. I say, and you're like, oh, this would be cool. Oh, that would be cool. Oh, I wonder about that. You don't even know if it's going to work as a painting or not. But I call, to me, Google is window shopping. I window shop for images that I may or may not paint. And it could be ideas. I like anything from the 20s to the 50s. That's my era. Even a lot of my stuff the 20s, a lot of my gas masks that people think they're actually from World War One. 1918, 1917. I've just changed them up to make them look more progressive, more into modern. And then but that's like the first war. They had all that gas, they had all those things, but you can take something and change it into whatever you want. And then socially, there's so many different things. Honestly, what you could do with an image. The 50s and 60s, like the housewife show that I had at Jill's, 50s housewives. It was all I had to do. I googled 50s housewives, boom, done. All these sad, lonely pictures they were screaming at me, paint me, paint me, paint me. It was the easiest for me to like. I had too many images to pick from. They were all great photos, and it was this whole different way. It was the last era of that. That housewife is dead. Housewives are, they're no more in a sense. Not like that. Not that they needed to be ever to begin with, but for subject matter and material and being able to contain yourself, you need a big enough topic. And that topic to me was the housewife. I mean, it's great. It's
Yeah, but at the same time, you also, and I'm going to say it again because I think it's important to me, having looked at that body of work multiple times, is that there's a reference in there to periodicals of the 50s, and like I've said, any one of those could be a cover of any magazine or periodical from the 50s. Any one of those could be Saturday Evening Post or McCall's or whatever.
oh
So
yeah.
that's already built into it.
Well, I didn't look at any of those. I know all that kind of work because I like that kind of work, but all mine were based off of a real photo. And I purposely didn't want to look at those kind of Saturday Evening Post covers, any kind of cover art. I don't ever want to look at anything that while I'm painting, I don't even look at I use the image once and then I never look at the image again. I purposely don't ever try to paint anything to look like the original image. I never want it to be like that. It's boring. I'm not one of those painters that's going to try to be a photographer. If I wanted to look just like the picture, I would photography is way easier and way cheaper. One camera and a printer, done deal. But to be a painter, it's a totally different ball game. I am one of those guys that I like to do my research. And through the research of what I want to paint, I got to explore. That to me is the fun part. Even right now, I have to go and find all new images. I need probably 100 more pictures, 200 more pictures, just to keep me entertained. And I haven't even surfed the internet yet to find what I want. I need topics. I always need topics. I purge. I go through probably my library of pictures right now. I probably don't even have more than 250, maybe we'll call it 300 images that I have that I could paint, right? I've probably already painted 250 of those already. They're already paintings. I've stored them I've got them stored on the cloud, the photo I could use. But I want more. I need new subject matter. I tried to go into the Wuhan thing. The last time I went down the rabbit hole, besides a few pictures for the cowboy show, I went and started doing wet market research. Well, and I was doing wet market research in January. I started doing and I have 2 wet market paintings that I did. And I have probably maybe 10 or 15 wet market images. I couldn't even get the photos. Every time I got down to the wet market shit, I got sick. It's too dark. And if it's too dark for me to look at as a photo, I don't know about the whole feeling of it. I know it's going to be hard as a painting to do because just
okay. Well, what's the difference between that? Because when we're talking about your political work, which is blatantly political, what is the difference between that and like your gas mask series, which is also blatantly political?
Well, the way I look at the gas mask, any of my gas mask pieces, it's all Britain, it's all England in the 40s, and they were really using it for self-defense from Germany, being more about fear for being gassed. And then it became it's so strange. It's in the 40s there, a gas mask became fashion. It became just like the mask for us right now. Like everybody's wearing a mask or should be wearing a mask. It's the same thing, but a different form. This is a virus, but that was gas, a real gas attack. And I don't know. I like the idea. It doesn't even matter about gas masks. I like the idea. If you look at a lot of my work has a lot of Halloween to it. Like I've painted a lot of Halloween masks or Halloween characters. I do. I like people having a mask on, a mask on, mask off. It's easier to go out with a mask on in public. Not the ones we're wearing now. The character, being someone else. I don't know if you know this about me as well. I'm a trained actor. We had a black box theater. We did our own plays. I wrote and directed and played Andy Warhol in a play that was in a museum during the Super Bowl in our town. I have a very strong stage theater background, when I put my time into a piece, I want each piece to have like a feeling. If I succeed, it has the feeling. If I fail, which you can't win at every piece, if I fail, I'll keep trying the next day. I'll keep trying the next day and see if I can win again. It's not an easy road, but it's the only one I know. So I keep getting up every day and trying it one more time.
Okay, so let's just follow that theme a little bit further out. And now that you're telling me about a theatrical background, let's apply that to the Gas Mask series, because one of the things about that series, beyond the obvious political comment that's being made, is that there's a whole sense of intimacy, or the lack of physical contact, or the desire for physical contact, that is not really attainable because of the gas mask. So you telling me you've been in theater tells me there's other levels of human experience that are in those pieces, beyond me saying that here's a comment about the politics of war, or the politics of germs, or the politics of biohazards, or whatever that is. And so I want you to speak to that, because I think it's really important to understand a level of humanity that is in your work that might get overshadowed by the kind of blatant, garish nature of what you do.
Well, another one of my favorite artists, de Kooning. If you ever look at de Kooning's work, do you realize how raw and real and powerful his work is? If you ever stand in front of a de Kooning piece, and I've stand in front of many of his pieces, and they just have all that raw, real, gorgeous energy into it, and it's chaos. And whenever I'm in my zone, I'm dancing with chaos. And if I'm dancing with chaos, I have a paintbrush or pastels or pencils or any number of weapons in my hand to execute upon whatever material I'm throwing down on right there, no matter what it is. And if I'm in full control of all those, then I will dance with chaos as long as I can, and whatever result for however long I'm in that moment, I'm fine with it, because that to me is the invitation. It's for a certain kind of artists. When you get to that dancing moment, you're invited there. It's like a stage. You're an actor on a stage. You're a singer in a band. It's any of those. It's all that same feeling. You're the writer. When you feel that moment, and you're lucid, and you're really in the creative spirit. It's bliss. It doesn't matter who the troubles are gone, that, all the things that are bothering you are gone. You're just making that magic. That's what most, I would think, that are in this trade, are looking for. It doesn't matter. The magic moment happens for everyone, because it's what keeps them coming back. This is definitely not an easy trade to be in. It's, whether it be face mask this year or war next year, or election year, name it, artists face the reason for everyone not to buy their work. It doesn't even matter. We've been outgunned for the last few decades, but we're still in the fight. And artists that make good work, they win. They'll always find a way to win. I'm never afraid of my work and people not liking it, because the way I see it, I'm only going to be around for a few more years anyway. So you get what you can while you can. And if you got it while I was alive, thanks very much, because you probably bought me some food and weed, and I appreciate it. So, it's like I'm real. It's like you're living the moment, you lived your life, and you live it as good and full and as long as you can. And then you check out. I'm happy with being a self-taught artist that's had over 500 shows around the world, painted some 6,000 paintings. I'm okay with it.
Okay, so
and I'm still looking forward to the next day.
Okay, so let's talk about your studio, because you're in the Van Dusen building, so you're in the Astoria Studio Collective, and I have not seen your new studio. You're in, I think it's the southwest corner. Do I have that? No, the southeast corner. I have that correct?
Oh yeah, it's a closet with a window.
Okay.
But I've made it the best. It's honestly, it's a great studio. I love it. It's perfect. It's a good balance. I love that building. It's a good energy. But I'm a studio artist. I always have a studio. I've had a studio no matter what, everywhere for at least 25 years. I separated myself from the home artist to the studio artist. I'd rather live in my studio than have have a house and then try to be an artist at the house and try to do all these things, because you have to really commit. You have to really throw yourself in all the way to make it work. I believe if you don't, why would you want to half-ass your life? Why would you want to half-ass an art career? Even no matter what you do, I always try to strive to be better. And some days it works, and some days it doesn't.
Well, and one of the things I'm really curious about is that you have a building it's a creative building. It's filled with creative people. And do you have the opportunity for cross-pollination and for synergy? I mean, is the energy transferable?
No. If I really wanted, I would love to tell you what I came up with today, but it's like hilarious. I don't know, but I can't. I'll have to tell you off podcast. I'll tell Chris first. He'll laugh.
Okay.
It might be a catchphrase. I'm hoping it becomes a catchphrase because I don't want to forget it before it becomes a catchphrase. It'd have to probably be an inside circle catchphrase.
Oh, an inside circle catchphrase. So like an
inside circle
catchphrase.
I want to say it, but then I can't say it because, this is the internet. But yes, it's so funny. I can't really. It's so
use
funny.
Your imagination.
It's so funny. It's hilarious. I don't know. I want to. I've got an idea, and it's already started. We'll see what happens. But I don't want to. I am one of those artists now where I'm just not going to fight any system. I'm going to have my own system. You know what I'm saying? I don't. The rules that I play by are rules that most people don't even know exist in the art world in this town at all, because they don't ever get outside of this town. So I'm on a completely different level than I would say 90% of everybody in this town, because they don't get out. They don't go to Portland. They don't go to Seattle. They don't go to San Francisco. They've never been to Miami for Art Basel. I could give them a list of 20 artists. If they don't know their work, then I don't even believe they're serious artists. And I could pick from different genres, different periods, different people talk about the work, and it's all because I've stood in front of that painting. I've been into those museums. I know what I'm talking about because I pursue art way differently than that. The only other person probably is dedicated to me is Jill with her craft, as far as pushing themselves hard every day, because she needs to do it to stay alive. She's got mortgages, bills. I do it for a different reason. She does it to stay alive. I do it to stay alive. Same reason on that basic sense. But then we have the whole pursuit, the pursuit of what it is to be an artist. It's like, that's a tough one. That's a tough one.
Well,
so I'm glad to be a part of this. I'm glad to be a part of this family, the Secret Gallery family. Yeah, it's because the people here really they know what they're doing. Chris knows what he's doing. Even you, Crazy Phil, you know what you're doing. The roster, they're good people. It's like, I'd rather be around like-minded, good artists, small circle, bigger impact. That's fine for me. Whether you want to call it,
But where I'm really going with the question is that it doesn't change the fact that you're in a building of creative types and you have to have interaction with them just coming and going from the building. How does that affect you?
Oh gosh, Phil, do you want to? I would almost there could be part 2 of this podcast. I mean, you could tell everybody to stop listening, and then I would go into the second part of the podcast. But no, I mean, it's all different energy. I don't really, it's like people need. I want a bohemian art house. I want a bohemian art house where everybody that's there is putting time in to a bigger idea. The Studio Collective, we're going through a hard time right now with the COVID and everything. So we're not even letting people into the building. It's no outsiders, insiders. That's kind of how everybody is. And Glenn, the owner, he's susceptible, so he's definitely closed off from public. I mean, your daughter, I saw her yesterday. She's down in the basement. She's luckily closed off from public, but we're not even open right now. Nothing's open. We don't even have a plan to open up. My whole thing is we got to be outside. I think outside is safer. I'm not even worried about people coming in. I don't want anybody into my studio. The only person I've had over into my personal space is Oscar. It's because he and I are in a band together, and we do band practice in my studio and record in there. But I don't really want to, this is new. And even now, we're all, like the last few months, we've all been practicing the social distancing. Everybody keeps themselves with the doors closed. We all are cordial and say hello, but we can't. I don't think right now we could have a powwow of creativity all together because people just don't feel safe right now. So it's kind of like if you had the ability to be an artist, and it's got to be the impact of your work. You know what I'm saying? If you had 10 artists that were all impactful, that impact would be felt way outside the building, way outside the town, way outside the state, way outside, the coast. I am going to be a part of that kind of a collective. I'm going to be, it's the Secret Gallery is that way online. And then there'll be a working collective in Astoria, where the collective, we already have it because we're already friends, but I don't like the idea of being a collective inside a building. That is, it's too much pressure on everybody to perform. And right now, people aren't showing up to do that because they're scared of dying. So it's like, if you have to want to pigeonhole everybody into this, that y'all are this, and this. Well, it's not that right now because it's not. Everybody's more fearful of what, paying their bills, and it reflects. The only people that right now are going to progress are the ones that just don't give a damn. If you just don't give a damn about what's going on right now, not about dying and all that stuff, but just don't give a damn about your work and just keep pushing, keep grinding. The audience will find you. Your audience will find you. Everybody's shut in. Nobody has, they've been looking at the same shit on their walls for 3 months now. They're probably wanting to get something new. But also, they don't have any money because they haven't been to work. So you have all these, so here you are, you could be painting all these paintings for people that are broke. So here's one broke person trying to sell to another broke person. Everything has to come into fruition for any of this to have any type of gains. Like if anybody wanted some of my work and they wanted to put it somewhere and they wanted it to say if somebody wanted 10 gas masks and they want to put 10 gas masks up, and they wanted to have a big impact of gas masks. Well, is anybody going to buy those gas masks? Are they going to put those in their home, or do they just want the gas masks to look cool? I don't care about being cool. I haven't cared about that for a long time because it's cool. Don't pay the bills, and I don't pay for money either. I paint what I want to all different things. If you have to paint what you want when you want it, you can build up. If you paint enough, you'll have enough that somebody will want. If you only have 3 or 4 paintings and all of them are shit, you might starve that day. So you better have enough for people to choose from. It's the desire. Your desire could go over into every one of your pieces, or it can go over into none of your pieces. It's like I always say, a hungry artist is better than a full artist. A hungry, starving artist is going to make better work than a fat, happy artist. Because a fat, happy artist don't care. Well, I mean, it doesn't matter. You could be a skinny, fat, happy artist. It doesn't matter. Your level. You should never worry about the level. To me, the most successful artist I've ever met in my life, that I've become great friends with, is Jill. And she always starts over every single painting. But she's one of the best painters I've ever met in my life. And she starts over every single painting because the last painting doesn't matter, even though it's a masterpiece. And how many masterpieces can one artist paint? But she's off to the next one. I mean, that to me is like, dedication, understanding, all the elements that will end up. I mean, and she's still young, still able, still willing, still, a part of something that, like, well, after she's dead and gone, her work will be remembered, and it'll be like, oh wow, she did this then, or she did that then. That's what I'm trying to get to. I paint as much as I can to where if I paint 1,000 pieces and 10 or 20 of them get out to that level, I feel successful. That they got to what was he feeling? What was he doing? What was he, what was that moment? That's how hungry I am. I'm looking for the piece to not to live off of, but to be remembered by. The piece to be remembered by is what I'm always striving for every day. And it's very rare that it happens, but it's what I look for.
Yeah, well, there was that great quote by Picasso when they asked him what his favorite painting was, and his answer was the next one.
The next one. It's always the next one.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Well,
oh my God, this has been really good.
Yeah, I guess we should probably wrap this up. Morrison, it's been a pleasure chatting.
We didn't even start.
I get that feeling.
I didn't even. This is like
the dangerous. The two of you talking.
It's the tip of the iceberg. But honestly, I just want to smoke a cigarette. So if you want to talk to yourself while I go smoke, I'll come back.
Yeah, well,
hey, I tell you what, we'll let everybody run through again, and we'll do part 2, and I'll tell you some secrets.
I just want to be a fat, happy artist.
Be a fat, happy artist. There you go.
To be fat and happy.
To be fat and happy. Well,
it has been a pleasure.
Apply for food stamps.
There you go. Yes.
And as always, thank you, Chris, so much for putting this together.
All right,
cool. And this will be live on the Secret Gallery website and Apple Podcasts. Tonight, as every Monday night, we launch a new episode of the Secret Gallery podcast. Not live from the Secret Gallery. And you can check out the Secret Gallery and Morrison's work and our current shows at www.thesecret.gallery.
And it's a great show. It's a great show.
All right, see you, Phil.
Okay.